Anyway, we've now reached the top of the hour. I know that a lot of you are sweltering away today, so thank you very much for joining us. And we're looking at contact center coaching and training exercise. I think it's going to be an absolute fascinating webinar. Delighted today to be joined by two great speakers. Gavin Scott, who's a customer service expert. Gavin, thank you for joining us today.
Good to be here, Jonty. Thank you.
And you're going to be taking a look at coaching in the contact center?
Yeah, absolutely. And how we really set ourselves up for success when it comes to helping people to embrace some of the coaching activity that we do with them.
Excellent. And I'm also delighted to be joined by Kim Ellis from Go Ginger, a training consultant. Kim's done a webinar before with us and it went down very well. Kim, thank you for joining us.
Welcome.
And what are you going to be talking through today, Kim?
I'm going to be giving you some practical activities that you can use when you're coaching either individuals or teams virtually. So I'm really focusing on activities that you can use remotely.
Excellent. Well, before we get into that, we're going to have a little bit of housekeeping. Today, we're logged into our chat room. Now, we are using a different webinar technology. We've moved from GoToWebinar to Zoom for this webinar to see if we can get the hang of this of new technology. We've also got our chat room alongside. This isn't the Zoom chat window. This is actually a separate chat room, and you can access that through cch.chat. So just type that into your browser here. It's quite easy to do. The big advantage of being in the chat room is we've got links so you can download the webinar slides from up here. And also we're going to have a quiz after Gavin's presentation. And the voting is through these buttons here, A, B, C, or D. So if you just like to log in and vote on those, which would be good. Currently we've got about 140 people online, but we've only got 60 people in the chat room. So if you just like to type into your browser cch.chat, or if you're having problems with that, just type in callcenterhelper.com/chat. That will take you into the chat room. It does come up in a separate window side by side. We are looking to integrate the two in the future, which is one of the main reasons why we're looking at the Zoom technology. You can also access and get into the quiz through, for instance, having your mobile phone. So you can see the slides on the screen and you can take part in the quiz or the chat room on your mobile phone. So there's the link, cch.chat chat there. If you've got a question, if you'd like to use hashtag question for question or hashtag tip for a tip, and we do have a prize of a bottle of champagne or a box of chocolates or an Amazon gift voucher for the best tip, whichever you'd prefer. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to kick off with a poll, and that poll, if I can just get it up here, which is and the poll question is, hang on. Bear with us. Rachel, I'm struggling on this one. I don't know if you can pull up the poll there. Oh, there we go. So the question is, what is the best way to coach a telephone call? Would you say it's the advisor reviews their own call? Would you say that it's a buddy or another advisor reviews the call? Do you think it's better that the team leader reviews the call? Do you think it's better with a quality scorer that reviews the call? Or is it better that you have some other form of coach that reviews the call? So which way of these do you think is the best or the most suitable way to review a call? So I'd just like to vote on that. I think that's going to be fascinating to see there. Kim, I don't know if you're seeing the results coming through.
I'm not. I'm just looking at the poll that I can't vote on. So, I'd love to put my answer on.
Well, which answer would you have gone for?
I would say best way is to have a buddy review the call initially, because buddies are generally advisors who are really experienced. So I would say initially get them to do some coaching and then feedback to the advisor, because if the advisor does it, then if they do it initially, then they're going to focus on either the very positive or the very bad, depending on the advisor.
Okay, well, very interestingly, it looks like the most popular answer of our audience there is the advisor reviews their own call. Sample size here, it's 165. So 36% have said the advisor reviews their own call. 27% said it's best done by a quality scorer. Only 18% think the team leader is the best person to do it. And I don't know what that quite says about how we're training our team leaders. Buddy is actually bottom of the approach there. I think buddying is a very, very underrated system.
Yeah, I've just pretty much gone the complete opposite of what everybody else is saying then.
Aha. Well, that's good. I think that shows. But this isn't necessarily the best. This is just what people's view of what they've found. So okay. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. I think hopefully that's gone off. So it's probably a good chance now to jump across to Gavin. And Gavin, I don't know if you'd like to share with us your ideas on call center, contact center coaching.
Yeah.
Don't know if you'd like to put the slides up on your screen.
Yes. Let me just quickly check that I can do that from here. Here we go.
There we are.
Is it all good?
Excellent.
Okay, good stuff. And thanks, John T, for the introduction there. And welcome everyone from around the world. Great to see so many different places appearing. So good to have massive attendance today. Now, coaching, it's just another buzzword, right? Are you getting a return on your investment when it comes to coaching? Do you have people who say to you, just don't coach me, I haven't got time? Or you're not coaching me, are you? Or don't grow me. Certainly something that I heard a lot of people say to me during my time at O2. And we want to make sure that we get full return on investment when it comes to the coaching activity that we carry out with our people. And so the purpose of the session I'm going to share with you today is to give you a few ideas, a few hints, tips and tricks that will really help to make sure that your people fully embrace any of the coaching activity that you carry out with them. We know that coaching is a massive investment when it comes to making time to do coaching. And I think some people have already said, sometimes it's challenging to find the time. It's a massive investment, and we want to make sure that we get a return on that investment. If I'm going to invest some time in my people, helping them and supporting them, I want to get something back. And so, like I said, I'm going to share with you a few ideas that will definitely help to set you up for success when it comes to getting a return on your investment. Now, in every organization, we have values, we have principles, we have behaviors that govern how we show up and how we interact with our people and how we interact with our customers. And these values, principles, and behaviors, they're there for a reason. We believe that if everyone adopts these values and behaviors, it will move us closer toward achieving our overarching objective or our company mission. So they're massively important. And when it comes to coaching, we want to make sure that our people embrace the solutions that we share with them, and they carry out the actions that are agreed, they own them, and they take full accountability. So like I said, this 15-minute session today is going to set you up for success with any future coaching activity that you carry out with your people and provide you with some return on investment. Now, the next slide that I'm going to share with you, I first saw this being used by a guy in the UK. He's a guy called Steve Head. I saw it back in 2009, and it's a very simple slide, but it completely blew me away. I'm going to share this slide with you now. And as I reveal the slide, I want you to think about what feedback would you give me on this simple slide? Let's have a look, shall we? So have a look a second, have a think. What would your feedback be? Yeah, what would you say to me? Now, it's interesting. The first thing that people notice is they pick up on the stuff that's wrong. And if I was doing this in a classroom or a training room, the resounding piece of information that would come my way would be, Gav, you got the bottom one wrong. Yeah, we just seem to focus on the negatives. Yeah. And when it comes to feedback, you know, what can feedback be? Of course, it can be constructive and it can also be positive. What we often do is focus on the stuff that's wrong. And so why do we do that? Well, you know what? It starts when you're very young. I remember coming home from school one day and I said to my mum, I said, Mum, I did a spelling test today. I got 18 out of 20. What do you think she said? Which two did you get wrong, Gav? I got 18. I picked up my GCSEs when I was 16 years old, back in 1990, showing my age there. And I walked outside the school and my granddad was parked in a green Renault 5. These cars were all the rave back then. And I opened the car door and I says, Granddad, I got 3 C's, I got 5 D's, and I got a G. What do you think he said? What'd you get a G in, Gav? I'm like, Granddad, I got a G in Welsh. I mean, I've only been doing it for 2 years. I'm really pleased that I got a G. But we're very good at focusing on the negatives. And yeah, it's certainly something that is in our DNA, because where does it come from? Well, you know, it comes from our ancestors. If you think back, our ancestors would think to themselves, right, okay, we've got to survive here. And so if they had a situation where they saw a rustling bush, they would think, okay, is it a rustling bush or is it a saber-toothed tiger? It's got to be a saber-toothed tiger. So run away. It's about survival. So it's in our DNA to focus on the negatives. And sometimes that shows up with us in the workplace. Now, I spent 12 years working for O2 based in Leeds. And I said to the guys in the contact center there was 450 heads. I says, you give me a high performing team and I'll make them average. How will I do that? Well, I'll focus on the negatives. I'll focus on the stuff that they were getting wrong. I'd make it my job to catch them doing bad things, and I'd call them out on it. And by doing that, they think to themselves, I'm no good at this, because all that Gav talks about is the stuff that I'm getting wrong. They'd have low confidence, low self-esteem. They just think, what's the point? On the flip side, I said, you give me an average performing team and I'll make them the best. How will I do that? I'll focus on the stuff that they're getting right. And when that happened, I'd be there to say, love that. How you ended that call then, brilliant. You picked up on the gold dust from that conversation, and that made a massive difference when it comes to our customer experience. The meeting yesterday, you really took ownership of that issue, and you know, I really appreciate the approach that you took there. Great work. I'd pick up on all the good stuff that my guys were doing, and I'd make sure that I was there to call it out. Now, I'm not saying that we ignore the stuff that's going wrong. I'm not saying that we ignore the things that our people might not be getting quite right. You know, it's our job to pick up on the stuff that people could do better, and we owe it to them to let them know where they could improve a little here and there. But ultimately, we've got to make sure that when they're doing good things, we're there for that as well. And so we're thinking about lockdown and, you know, people working remotely at the moment. Sometimes a simple phone call will go a long way to say, listen, I know we've not had time to connect very much, not been able to listen to some of your calls, but you know what, just talk me through a bit, and then give them some praise. Give them some praise on it. They'll love it. They'll love it. Okay, so some people may have heard this being referred to as hashtag 149. So hashtag 149, are you someone who focuses on the stuff that is correct? The 1, the 4, the 9. Or are you a hashtag 15? Are you someone who focuses on the stuff that people are getting wrong? Yeah? Okay. So, like I said, it's our job to make sure that we catch people doing good things. And when that happens, we're there, we give praise, and we really focus on the hashtag 149. it's interesting. I do an exercise in one of the training events that I do, and I place a cross on the floor, and I say to a leader who I blindfold, I said, right, okay, you got to make it to the cross. And there's another leader who's got to guide them into that cross. And I say, you can only use 2 commands. The commands are on course and off course. That's all you can say. Now, you'll be surprised about how many people, when the leader is on course, they stay quiet. They say nothing. But as soon as they go off course, you can hear them shout, off course, off course, off course. And at the end, I say, what was the reason why you didn't focus and say on course when they were on track? And they would say, well, they're on track. They don't need me. And I'm like, they do. They need you to give them the confidence that they're doing the right thing. So you say on course, on course, on course. You see how quick they'll go then. So it's our job to make sure that we catch people doing good things, and we let people know when they're on course and also occasionally when they're off course. And there's a little bit of science to this as well. Let me share with you some science. I came across an article back in 2014 by the Harvard Business Review, and it talked about the neuroscience of positive conversations. And in this article, it said, when you give someone some negative feedback, the endorphin that is released inside the body is the stress endorphin. Yeah, it's called cortisol. And guess how long that stays active in the body? When you give someone some negative feedback, cortisol, it stays active for 26 hours. 26 hours. I mean, that is just crazy. Now imagine if you were injecting cortisol into all of your people, you know, what sort of a negative effect would that have on the team? And some of you may have heard the research by a guy called Jim Rohn, and he talks about you become the average of the 5 people that you spend most of your time with. You become like the 5 people that you surround yourself with the most. And I know it's a bit different in the moment when it comes to remote learning, but when we get back in the office, let's have a think about how I can really focus on creating a high-performing team. Maybe reduce some of the cortisol that's being passed around. So when you give praise, what happens then? Well, the endorphin that we release in the body is called oxytocin. And guess what? This stuff stays active for far less than cortisol. So what's key is that you've got to feed people with plenty of praise. I mean, doesn't it feel great when someone gives you some praise? I mean, just this morning, the teachers of my 2 young daughters made a quick phone call, and they just said, Lulu, I know it's a bit tough at the moment, but you know, I'm seeing some of your work that's coming through on the blog. Some great photos, well done. How do you think Lulu felt? She was like, I can't believe it, the teachers phoned me, Dad. Isn't that great? It's a little thing, but it goes a long way. Okay, so thinking about parenting, I mean, I mentioned that, you know, I've got 3 kids. Just imagine if I was a #15 dad. Just imagine if all I focused on was the stuff that my kids were getting wrong. If I criticized them, if I picked them up on the stuff that they weren't doing well, if I was negative towards them, what sort of kids would I bring into the world? They're not going to, you know, try new things. They're going to be quite critical towards other people. They're going to be quite negative in their approach. They won't take risks. So what I do is I make sure that when it comes to my kids, I really think about how I can pick them up on some of the good stuff that they're doing. When they do great things, then Dad's there to say, love that. When my son's playing football, great pass, Sam, you did really well there. Love that. I've got to pick them up on some of the things that they're doing well, right? And so when I want to have a challenging conversation, they're more likely to embrace it. And that's what coaching is about. We've got to think about how we guide our people and encourage them to embrace some of the challenging conversations. And we also need to make sure that when they're doing good things, we're there to catch them in the moment and catch them in the act. Okay, so some of you may have heard of the phrase that Stephen Covey talks about. It's called the emotional bank account. And he talks about the importance of putting deposits in your people's emotional bank account. let's think about this for a second. The more praise that you give to them, the more deposits you have going into that emotional bank account, and the more in credit you are. And so when you want to have a challenging conversation, you've got credit. You can make a withdrawal. But if you're not doing that, and you're not giving praise, and you're not catching people doing good things, then ultimately you're going to be overdrawn, right? You've got no credit in the bank account, and that's not a good place to be. So I'm going to put it out there, and we'll just do a quick poll now, I think. And so I'm going to pop this up here, and I'm sure that Rachel, there it is. So when it comes to the emotional bank accounts of your people, are you in credit? Do you give plenty of praise? Do you do it often? Do you do it regularly? Yeah, little and often is key. Are you overdrawn? Do you maybe focus too much on the stuff that they're getting wrong? Or are you just breaking even at the moment? So spend a few moments just filling out the poll and see what you think, yeah? Jonty, are you in credit?
I think I'm probably breaking even, so I've got some deposits to make, I think, in the next few days.
Good, and I'm sure there's plenty of opportunity to make some deposits.
Okay, I think we've got most people voted now. Let's just share the results. Sample size, I think it's 189. So let's put the results up here. So we've 59% are breaking even, 30% are in credit, and 12% are overdrawn. So generally sort of even stroke, slightly ahead of the curve.
Good. I mean, that's great. 30% of people are in credit. You're doing enough praise. You're showing enough appreciation. I mean, that's great to see. And I read a piece in Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And it was a story about a farmer and his wife. And the farmer came back after a day in the field. And as he arrived on the kitchen table, there were bales of hay. And he said to his wife, what's the bales of hay for? And she said, I may as well serve you bales of hay because you show no appreciation for the good food that I serve up. Wow. We got to show appreciation to our people, and definitely in the current climate, it's massively important to make sure that we catch people doing good things. Okay, so we'll just close that off. So I mentioned with my kids, I really think about filling the emotional bank account, and notice some of the comments that I've put on there. They're not focused on the end outcome. It's about the effort, right, that they've made. And certainly in the workplace, I'd be thinking about really calling out the values, the behaviors, the principles that you want people to show up with more. Because if you give them recognition and praise for that, guess what? They'll do more. They'll do more of it. And so with my kids, I'm feeding the emotional bank account. They feel good. I'm in credit. And so when I want to have a challenging conversation with them about something that wasn't quite right, there's more chance they're going to embrace the feedback. Now, I'm not saying that it always happens. There's definitely been times over lockdown where there's been, quite a few challenging conversations. And, it's been a bit of a challenge for everyone. But over the lifetime, they recognize that, every now and again, that's definitely going to give us some great feedback for the stuff that we do. And so they do more of it. Okay. So we've got to think about how we focus on catching people doing good things. When good things happen, it's about making sure that you're there to celebrate that success. And if it's challenging during lockdown or challenging with remote working these days, then how else can you think about catching people doing good things? It might just be a simple email that you see or a conversation that you overhear or whatever that might be, but really focus on catching people doing good things. Now, just to summarize, we've looked at the need to focus on catching people doing good things. We've talked about an approach called #149. Do you focus on the good stuff that your people are doing? Or are you more of a #15? We know that there's some science that sits behind it, and we can fill the emotional bank account with that praise and that appreciation, and that's going to make sure it puts you in credit. But ultimately, you make a choice in terms of how you want to show up. You make a choice in terms of what you want to do. But if you want to get full return on investment from your coaching activity, I'd encourage you to start making sure you do plenty of deposits. because the returns will definitely come in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Gav. Some great feedback there. We're going to jump across and we're going to have a quiz now. So I'll just get the quiz slide up on the screen there. But while doing that, if you can just type into the chat room what you liked best about Gav's presentation. Certainly, some of the great things there, the emotional bank out, make sure that's in credit. I thought it was very interesting, the comment, catch people doing good things. I think that's very important to do. And also, when you're giving praise, focus on effort, not just on outcomes. It's very easy to focus on the high performers, whereas actually it's the people really trying to make an effort makes a difference. So if you could all be logged into the chat room, if you're not already logged in, if you just type in callcenterhelp.com/chat or even cch.chat, and we've got most people logged into the chat room. There's some buttons at the bottom of your screen, A, B, C, or D. I'm going to ask some questions now in our quiz, and if you want to press those buttons, so press the buttons, don't type it in, press the buttons there. So I think we've got 114 logged into the chat room so far. So the first question is, true or false? 30% of UK employees say they don't feel in sync with their organisation's goals. So is it A, true, or is it B, false? 30% of UK employees say they don't feel in sync with their organisation's goals. So I'd just like to vote on that. We've got 74 voted so far. Let's see if we can get a few more votes in. Just give you a couple of seconds more for that. I think most of you are logged in there. callcenterhelp.com/chat if you want to take part. Okay, so let's have a thing. Well, actually, most of you got it wrong. It's not 30% of UK employees. Actually, it's a much higher percentage. It's 41% of employees, according to Gallup, say that their employees don't feel in sync with their organisation's goals. So that's certainly a bit of training work to do on that in terms of organisational culture. So the second question, which two chemicals did Gavin highlight when discussing the science behind recognising good performance? Is it A, cortisol and dopamine? Is it B, cortisol and oxytocin? Is it C, dopamine and oxytocin? Or is it D, endorphins and cortisol? So which two chemicals did Gavin highlight when discussing the science behind recognising good performance? So it'd be a great one to see how much people have taken in. And we've caught people doing something right. So well done to everyone there. It was indeed cortisol and oxytocin. Cortisol is the stress hormone, and oxytocin is the often called the pleasure hormone or the love hormone. It's often another way it's described. These chemicals help to explain the value of catching people doing good things. This lasts a long time. This lasts a short time. So very important there. So we've got Alex, who's up on top of the leaderboard there, and lots of people putting in lots of good effort to get onto that. Okay, next question. Which of the following is not necessarily best practice when coaching? So is it A, explaining the purpose behind the coaching? Is it B, setting clear expectations? Is it C, offering regular feedback? Or is it D, focusing on the score? Which of those do you think is not necessarily best practice when it comes to coaching? I think we've got most of you have voted on that one. It takes a little bit longer to work out the question. So here we go. And yes, I think everyone's getting that one right. Yeah, focusing on the score. The problem is when we focus on the score, we can focus too much on the outcomes of an interaction. We can miss learning opportunities. So don't get too wrapped up on the scores. And I think Gavin's point, focus on effort as much as on scores. Last question, and that is, who said coaching is unlocking people's potential to maximize their own performance? It is more often helping them to learn rather than teaching them. Was it A, Rosalind Carter, I think was the First Lady of the United States? Was it B, Ken Blanchard? Was it C, Tim Galway? Or was it D, Christine Kane? Which of them said coaching is unlocking people's potential to maximize their own performance? It's more often helping them to learn rather than teaching them, which I think is a very salient point. And I think it's a bit more tricky for everyone. So let's share the answer. It is Tim Galway. And let's have a look at the reason behind it. Tim Galway, in his series of books, The Inner Game, shares this quote. I think they've all said different quotes on coaching. Christine Kane has got a good one, who said, to build a strong team, you must see someone else's strength as a complement to your weakness, not as a threat to your position or authority. And I think certainly in a lot of large organizations, that's a bit of a problem. So let's see who is a winner. I think everyone's a winner here, but I think throughout that one, Alex has picked everyone up the post. So good luck to Alex, and we're going to be getting back in touch with you soon. So let's just jump across to the chat room now, and let's have a look at where stuff's coming in the chat room. Let's just get that up on the screen here, and share the screen. So I said this is a bit of a learning exercise for us. So hopefully everyone can see that. So we've got some. So the first thing, we've got a question from Sarah, who said, "I'd love some suggestions on how to effectively coach a senior agent on AHD. It's been an ongoing battle with this particular agent for the past 3 years. He's the culprit who gets sidetracked on topics not relevant to the order, or gives an abundance of information the customer may or may not need to know, leading to 25 to 30-minute phone calls. It makes it hard to staff him at certain hours of the day when we have limited seats available for phone coverage." So, Kim, I don't know if you've got any views on what you think might be the best way to coach this individual.
I do. My longest ever sales call was 72 minutes, and my manager was hopping mad. So I completely understand it from both sides. What I would say is the average handling time. How's the customer satisfaction scores? Because yes, you can get them to cut out all of the additional information that the customer doesn't necessarily need or want, but then how's that going to affect the customer satisfaction score? So you need to really find a balance that's going to be something achievable by your agents, but also keep their satisfaction scores high.
Indeed. Gavin, I think you were itching to say something on this one.
Yeah, I mean, one of the key things that I would be saying to them as a starting point is I'd be saying, listen, I want more of our customers to benefit from you, right? In terms of the approach that you take. And, you know, providing that this person's got great quality and is getting some great customer satisfaction results, then I'd really start thinking about how can we make sure that more of our customers benefit from the experience that you can provide. And then I'd start going down the line of, okay, in order for us to get to that point, what are some of the small changes that we could make, right? Then I'd pursue the conversation that way. But the message is, I want more people to be able to speak to you. That's got to be a good way of approaching it. Excellent.
Great answers there. So don't focus on the AHT and focus on outcomes and what can we learn? What can we learn from this? Great answers there. Let's have a look at a couple of ticks. Alex looks like he's been very busy. When coaching an advisor who's listened to the call, ask them to rate it out of 10. Then when they say their score, why ask not 0 to drive them to say what they did well, and why not 10 to help them explain what they need to work on? It's simple but very effective. It doesn't sound like coaching. I think that's a great tip there, Alex. Salam, who says, give your coaches an opportunity to review their own work first by asking open questions like, what did you think went well? And or what could you do differently next time, instead of telling them what they did wrong. I think that's very much in theme of the of everything so far. We've got a question in from Neil, who says, "Hi Gavin, love the whole hashtag 15 versus hashtag 149 concept. Can you be both? Is it something you can or you should flex around?"
Yeah, and it's a great question, Neil. I would definitely have a think about you knowing your people better than anybody else. And sometimes you got to make those small adjustments when you're personalizing the experience for them. So, you know, you might have people who absolutely say, Gav, listen, you know, I don't want the praise. I want you just to focus on the stuff that I'm getting better at. And I would still give the praise, but I'd really, you know, help and support them when it comes to what they want from me. So in short, I would say, yes, you know your people better than anyone else. And so therefore you go with what's going to work best for them. But remember, it's still massively important to pick up on some of the stuff that they're doing well. And again, whether you do that publicly or just privately, like a pat on the back or a quick thumbs up, they need to know that you've spotted some good stuff that they've done. I think that's key.
So a tip here from Laura: don't make the assumption that people are aware of what they are doing or not what they're not doing. You need to have the hard conversations. You owe it to that person in order for them to be successful. It's the nicest thing that you can do for them. And I think the other one that's quite interesting is actually getting, when you start listening to calls with people and asking them to review the calls, that often you find that people are their own sort of harshest critics. So we're going to jump, it's a good time now to jump across to Kim's presentation. We're going to have plenty of time for questions and tips at the end. So Kim, if you'd perhaps like to share your presentation up on the screen, and like to take us through your great training ideas.
Right. Thank you, everybody, and thank you, Gav, for a fabulous presentation. I'm going to go through 6 activities that you can use to take your coaching activity virtual. Now, before we go on to the first activity, I just want to bring in this slide from another webinar that I spoke on about how real-time coaching improves agent effectiveness. I would suggest having a look over at that one because I talk about some different coaching models. I've seen in the chat, Grow model, 2 stars and a wish, those are all in there as well. So I would recommend having a look over there. The main piece that I want to take away from that is that coaching shouldn't be done to people. Coaching should be working together to help somebody reach their full potential. You shouldn't be just coaching somebody. You should be working collaboratively with that person. And that's really the main idea that I want you to get in your heads about coaching. It's not doing it to someone, it's doing it with somebody. Okay, let's get into our activities. So you'll remember from Gav's slides that there was a lot of images. There were a lot of nice visual representations. And this is really leading into the first activity, which is pick word. You may have seen some of these on the internet before. And I'd just like to really reiterate how it solidifies the meaning. So just by showing a picture, lets you get the whole word association thing going. So let's have a look. This first one, this is a comic book character. Put into the chat, who do you think it is? So who is the cartoon character that I'm representing in images? Put the words together. It is. Loads of people saying Superman. Well done, everybody. Now, if you're just giving somebody a script to read, if you're just giving someone a list of coaching opportunities to read, it's not going to go in as well as if you combine that with images. And that's really what this activity is all about. So let's flip it to a work-related activity. What do you think this pick word is saying? So what phrase within a contact center? Stephanie, absolutely right. And the rest of you, very good. It's average handling time. So let's say we have the agent from before who is, you know, really up there with his average handling time or her average handling time. and you want them to focus on it, but maybe they don't understand what it actually is. They just think that they're delivering great customer service. So say to them, right, I want you to come up with a pick word on average handling time. And they're really going to be looking at each different element. So average, give me some images of that. Okay, so average, a few images, and then time. So they're really understanding what that phrase is meaning. Okay, next one is acronyms. We all love an acronym. AHT, CSATs, DOB for date of birth. If you're not familiar with CSAT, it's customer satisfaction score. So acronyms, like with pick words, can really get people to understand the meaning behind the words. And you can flip this a little bit and you can give them a subject. So you can say, I want you to come up with an acronym for customer service. And then they're going to go away and they're going to really break down what is excellent customer service. What do I want to say about customer service? How do I want our customers to feel? And you can do this in teams. This is a great, as well as the pick word, is a great one to do in teams. Send them away, give them a couple of days, and then bring them back and say, right, what have you got? So on here for you, the credit goes to Bruce Temkin. His email address is on the slide, website is on the slide. So this one is cares. We want our customers to know that the company cares about them. So we've got communication. We're accountable for the contact and for that customer. We're going to be responsive with that customer and we're going to show them empathy. And ultimately, the holy grail of contact centers is your one-call resolution. So we're going to be giving them solutions. So this is a great acronym and it's a great activity for getting people to really think about customer service. So it's a good all-round coaching. Got a few more for you here. Like I said, these are on the slides that you can download, so don't worry about trying to write them all down or screenshotting them. These are some great other acronyms. So let's say SMART, service, make their day, attitude, reliability, teamwork. Now, when they're creating these acronyms, they're really thinking about why they're putting each individual word and what the meaning is around that. So it can really help boost their brand awareness and their customer service awareness. So it's a great one for that. All right, the next one is drawing. Now this one is a little bit fancy. You're going to need a piece of paper, or if you're using virtual tools, then a whiteboard. So we're just going to show you a few home offices and let's have a look. So this first one, I would love that home office, but I bet when the sun comes around, you're going to absolutely bake. So nice chair, nice desk, it's very spacious. So it's looking all right. I would be a bit concerned about having that much light. I'd like a blind, but anyway. Second one is a complete DSE nightmare. Can you imagine? You know, his neck's going to get a crick in it, his posture. Working off a laptop is no good for your back position and your posture. Number 3, getting better. Still, we're working just off a laptop. I know that is, you know, essential sometimes, but if you can get a separate keyboard and mouse and get a desk, then that's ideal. Next one, perfect. You know, proper office setup, not that dissimilar to what I've got set up. It's not my actual office though. All right, so the actual activity, again, getting them in teams, thinking about how their work environment affects their phone conversations. So some of the answers that you might get from them, they might draw it like this. They could just do a very basic drawing of what their home environment is. They could have a bit of fun with it. You can have a bit of fun with it. You can say to them, right, I want you to put a plant on your desk, because plants on your desk can help with your emotional well-being. I talk to my plants. I don't know if the rest of you do. It helps them grow because of the carbon dioxide. So this is great for getting people to understand how their home environment, which is now their work environment, is really affecting how they're coming across to customers. I've got one of my friends who I worked with for many, many years in the call center, and she's on a laptop in her living room trying to service customers who are broken down at the side of the road. And she's like, they can't really hear me. I usually have two screens, so she has loads of things going on all over the screens, but she's now working on a laptop screen. So I can imagine that her average handling time's probably increased because she's having to flick between. So it's really getting them to think about what can they do to change their work situation or their home office situation to improve their customer service. All right, next one we have a poll. Everybody loves a poll. You can do this with individual people or you can do it in teams. People are much more likely to give you a realistic answer if they know it's anonymous. So Jonty, if you wouldn't mind just opening this poll, let's just see what everybody thinks. I feel less stressed working from home. For me, I'm a strong agreeer just because I really dislike commuting into offices. But on the flip side, I do miss the office environment. I miss chatting to people and I miss having a bit of banter with people. So let's have a look on the poll. Let's see where you come. So we've got 35% of you are agreeing and 30% are strongly agreeing. So that is some fabulous results. Well done everybody for feeling less stressed working from home. That must mean that your home office environment is absolutely fabulous. So well done everybody. The great thing with doing group polls is you can give them some really specific questions. You can ask them, you know, have your customer satisfaction scores increased? And if everybody is saying yes, resounding yes, but actually they've gone down, you know that there's a bit of a disconnect there. You know that you're going to have to do a bit of team coaching with them. So this is a really useful tool, but it's best done when it's anonymous because people will give you a more realistic and truthful answer if it's anonymous. Okay, next one is called the Wheel of Life. So this is another one that I found on the internet and the links are on the presentation. So this is the Wheel of Life. You can change these segments to be whatever you want. You can have them about personal life. You can have them about your KPIs. You can have them about your brand values. You can have them literally about anything. So then you grid it all up. You put a 0 down at the beginning. So do all your categories. 0 at the center for very dissatisfied, and at the outer edge for 10 for very satisfied. And then you get your agents to draw a line, basically rating them each area. So I've done an example here. So you can see that fun and leisure, I'm very dissatisfied. Money, very dissatisfied, but significant other, very satisfied. Personal growth, out there. So these aren't realistic answers, just saying that. I just put the lines somewhere so they'd create a nice picture. This would be really good combining with your polls. So if, like the example that I gave earlier, your customer satisfaction scores, if everyone's thinking that they're really high, but actually they're really low, why not throw in a Wheel of Life? But then break down your customer satisfaction scores into different areas or different, you know, just ideas about it. Do they fit? How comfortable do they feel with their home office? How comfortable do they feel with their average handling time? Things like that. So this is a really nice one to have, whether it's something that they can print out at home or they can just draw it on the back of an envelope or a piece of paper, and then you can bring this back into the team meeting. You can do it individually. So it's a really good one for team coaching and for individual coaching. It's a good one for thinking about as well the emotional bank account and also emotional intelligence. So if you really want to do that side of coaching and not the technical aspect of call handling, then this one combined with the poll is a really, really good and effective method of coaching, or it gives you a lot of data to build your coaching, should I say. Last one is Goldilocks and the 3 bears. Now, some of you may have heard about this one. You may have seen this You'll know the story, probably. So we've got Goldilocks wanders into the house of the three bears. She tastes the porridge, finding one bowl too hot, one bowl too cold, one bowl just right. I'm not going to read the rest of it. I'm just going to skip over to some questions. Goldilocks was a small girl. In the chat, true or false? Goldilocks knocks on the door before entering the house. True or false? So we're getting lots of trues coming through. Lots of trues. Oh, we've got a false, got a couple of falses. Okay, so let's have a look. She wanders into the house. We don't know if she knocks. It doesn't actually say that she's a small girl. And this is the really important message to this. All of the answers are false. This is a great one for active listening. It's a great one for coaching about making assumptions. Maybe if you have some of your agents who always cut the customer off at the end of the sentence because they think that they know what that customer wants. I've been that agent, not proud to say it, but I did that when I was an agent. So by doing these kind of active listening techniques, individually or as a group, it works best as a group, then you can really get them to think, actually, I don't have all the information, or I'm waiting until the customer finishes giving me all the information so I can make the decision, or so I can give them the information back. So active listening techniques, this is a great one. Again, it's on the slides, so you'll be able to use it off the slides. And that is it. So do you feel energized about taking your coaching virtually, everybody? Yes or no? Thank you very much, everyone. Have a fabulous rest of your day.
Thank you indeed for that. Some great feedback there. We're going to jump across to the chat room now. Well, before we do that, if you just put in the chat room what you liked best about Kim's presentation. I certainly loved the pick words. I thought that was a great exercise, as well as the customer service and acronyms. And I do love those exercises on active listening. Challenging assumptions versus actually what you read or what you hear, because there's often a big disconnect. Some great things there. So let's have a look at stuff coming through in the chat room. We've got lots of tips, lots of questions. Lindsay has said, be specific with praise. Great job doesn't give the same boost as your handling of that difficult customer is admirable. I think there's some great things there. Gavin, I think that was one of the points you made about being quite specific.
Yeah, and that I love that, and that's key, because you got to think about what behavior you want them to repeat again. And so the more specific you are, the more they'll think, I'll do that again. And so if you just say, yeah, great call, well, what was great about it? Really drill down to the specifics. That way they can repeat the same behavior on the next one.
Kim, here's a nice one. I have my teams build word clouds as a remote training activity. Great for getting teams thinking together. So I guess these are clouds with just different words in. So I guess a bit similar to the acronyms. Yeah. And the other one is to sort of, Gavin, I've seen people who've sort of done exercise where they sketch out pictures like your saber-toothed tiger and so on. People can be a little bit self-conscious about their drawing, because it's one of those things. We all draw as a child, and then school seems to teach you that you can't draw. So
yeah.
John T. Sorry, can I just say with Paul 121, if you give everybody the same words and then get them to emphasize certain words and then get them to explain why they've emphasized those certain words, and that's really effective.
Oh wow, that's a good one.
Sorry, Gav.
No, and I think the approach to take with trigger images really helps to make some of the messages land better. Like Kim mentioned in her pick word little exercise, we think in pictures, and so if we can bring things to life in a visual way, then sometimes people remember it better. So I'm all for the images. You probably noticed that from my presentation, but that works, it lands well. So yeah, we're all good at drawing as well, just that some are better than others.
Here's an interesting one. The question from Regina says, how do you provide coaching to someone that makes excuses or points to others, even if you've given positive feedback and there is only one area you have to address? And if anyone's got any thoughts on this one?
I do.
Kim, do you want to?
Yeah, sorry, chomping at the bit there. Every time they're deflecting, go back to them with a question. Why do you say that? Okay, so, and then bring it back round to them, control the conversation, but keep going back to them with open questions. Get them to explain their reasoning. Maybe there's something that you don't realize. Maybe they know something about the other people that you don't. So control the conversation, ask lots of open questions, and try and get them to reflect on themselves.
Some great thoughts there. Here's a couple of tips. Laura says, make sure your agents are taking notes when you're providing feedback to them, so they know exactly what you're asking them to work on, and they can keep it in front of mind. It's an interesting thought. And Laura's also got, after providing feedback, ask your agent, do you have some ideas on how you can improve on this? They'll buy more into the improvement plan if they come up with it themselves. Gavin, I think that's something that you're a proponent of.
Yeah, I'd love that. I'd make a small tweak and I would say, what would make this call even better next time around? That way I'm really opening up, getting them to think about some of the key things that they believe they can do to improve it. And I'm not saying, I'm saying it's still good, but what would make it even better? How could you add some polish to that call next time around to make it even more shiny than what it was?
And here's an interesting question from Dwayne, which is a similar line, but is there a ratio of positive feedback versus constructive criticism suggesting? If so, what ratio do you suggest? I know that the most common one is the sandwich, you know, one good bit, one bad bit, another good bit. I think people
2 stars
sometimes,
and a wish.
sometimes people see that sandwich coming. It's, you know, it's what I think was once described as the but monster. You're doing really well, but so is there a ratio, or is it as much of the first?
No, I mean, and I think I would definitely. I mean, if it was, I would move away from the sandwich approach, because people know what's coming. They're waiting for it, and so again, I would say sometimes if you're giving enough praise, then you can just have a challenging conversation and just say, right, what happened then wasn't good enough. So what are you going to do about it? In their head, they're thinking, you know what, Gav does pick me up on some of the good stuff that I'm doing, therefore they will embrace it better. Now, Dwayne, there is some research that was done, it's called the Lasada effect, but that research proved to not be correct. But definitely, you know, if you're interested to find out what that was all about, it talked about a ratio of 3 to 1, although the experiment was found to be not as effective. But yeah, it's called the Lasada effect. But the key thing for me, I would just say, you know, make sure you give him plenty of praise and lay it on with a trowel where you can.
This whole positive negative seems to be really resonating with the audience. Kim, I don't know if you've got a view for Claire. We like to focus on both the positives as well as the negative. The staff only focus on the negative. What can we do to help them appreciate the positive as well? Kim, any thoughts on this?
There's a few things that you can do. So you can do, you know, shout outs. We've had it before in newsletters where people are getting the praise in different ways. So yes, when you're giving them verbal feedback, then you're giving them some positives, you're giving them some negatives, you're giving them some areas to work on. And like you say, they're focusing on the negatives. So let's try a different way of giving them that feedback. So giving them, printing out, this is what the customer said, this is the customer testimonial of the call you've just handled. Putting them on the wall so people can see those positives, and then they're not going to focus so much on the negatives. You've just got to make sure that they don't forget about the things they've got to work on.
Indeed. So Alex said, I used to have a terrible AHT. When I became a coach, I looked at all the other KPIs if they were perfect. I left them alone as there was value as the value was there. So that's quite an interesting one of not I think that there's always a danger on AHT. It's a very good metric, but it's very poor as a target, and there is a danger in organizations that focus on that. I think that it's quite good over the last couple of years. We have moved away from that. Okay, excellent. Well, unfortunately, that's the top of the hour. That's all that we've got time for there today. If you could put into the chat room what you liked best about today's webinar. We have a winning tip, and the winning tip comes from Erica, who says, role play with your employees that struggle the most. Have them play the customer and do all the things they need coaching on so they can see from the customer's side. At the end, ask them to coach you on the interaction. I certainly think role play is an interesting one if you can get people into that. So that's a great one. If you could complete the survey, and if you could say how you thought the Zoom compared to our previous thing, if you leave us a comment there on the chat room, because I think we're going to be moving more to Zoom in the future as our webinar platform. And we will have coming up soon the next one of the webinars. I think we're going to be starting with the top 10 employee engagement ideas on the 10th of September. I think we might have one coming up on the 3rd. We haven't quite got the title for that yet. So thank you very much for everyone for joining us through this very warm weather in the UK. You can all go out and get yourself a nice lolly now. So just like to say thank you very much to our two speakers. Gavin Scott, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Really enjoyed it.
And Kim Ellis, thank you for joining us as well. It's been an absolutely fabulous webinar. Thank you, Kim.
Thanks for having me, and thank you everybody for getting involved in the chat as well. It
Wonderful.
Makes a difference to us as speakers.
Excellent. So thanks very much. Very enjoyable. We're back in September. We're having a bit of a summer break now, and we look forward to connecting with you all again in September. Until then, stay safe and be kind, and give lots of positive feedback to your teams. Thanks then. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Cheers, guys. Bye-bye.